practice should do, John, with this highly confidential information, and of course you can't get more confidential than our medical records, which we entrust medical practitioners to keep secure and safe and only have access for medical reasons. What the practice should have done is had in place proper procedures for supervision of staff, and most medical records these days are computerized, so they should have had computer systems in place that only allowed access to people's medical records for proper bona fide medical reasons, and manifestly that's what this practice didn't do.
Well, but it showed up, didn't it? That's the point. It showed up. They did identify that he'd been accessing these records when he didn't need to, and on more than one occasion, on many occasions. So surely, doesn't that mean that the systems were working?
No, absolutely not. I mean, Stephen Tennyson accessed medical records unlawfully in close to 2,000 occasions spanning a 14-month period, and it only came to light when someone was looking into his own personal computer area and sought for an entirely different reason, and happened to chance upon the fact that he had been accessing records that particular day. But for that chance occurrence, he would have continued to access records unlawfully in this way. And it's really not good enough in the 21st century for a practice not to have procedures in place, fairly straightforward procedures, passwords and the like, that would have kept Claire and all the other women's records secure.
It's interesting that we are talking about this, and this case is ongoing when the government is actually making our medical records available to a much wider area, aren't they? Or they're considering it.
Well, what I think the government are trying to do, and again it would be based on consent, but what the government are trying to do is make it easier, I think, for different medical practitioners to access people's records across different platforms, so that if someone turns up in accident and emergency and may be unconscious, for example, the doctors there could access their GP records.
Well, that's one thing, but the other point is that they will actually make them available to people doing research. So it's not just for medical, between different medical outlets. It's actually being possibly sold to companies to use for research. Well, certainly, in my view, that's something that shouldn't happen without people's explicit consent, and certainly I think that will be a contentious issue going forward if that's the plan. But really, it's quite ironic in this case because, as I say, most GP records these days are held in a computerized form, and if they weren't, if they were in the old paper form, then they probably would have been more secure, because if Mr. Tennyson had been coming in and out of an area where medical records are kept, he would have been very conspicuous. Yeah. But because it was on computer, he was able to access it surreptitiously in this way, which means that fairly straightforward computerized solutions should have been in place in this case, and unfortunately they weren't.